Good evening, Bill. Welcome to Tech Across the Pond again. It's been it doesn't it hardly seems a week ago since we were last here.
Yeah, good to see you again, my friend. Where are we today?
Well, it appears we're on a train going through what is similar to the Orient Express, I believe, which is a 1920s type of style carriage. It's an absolutely beautiful environment, isn't it?
It's fantastic. Yeah, I'm looking at you, and I'm also looking out the window, and I'm seeing the scenery go by. It's nighttime, and for those of us who are watching from afar, if you'll notice, the train is swaying slightly, and the hang-on handles from the ceiling tend to be swaying, and also even the tags on the luggage above our heads is swaying along with everything else. It's really quite a beautiful scene we're in.
I can't believe how authentic they got it, Bill.
Yeah, it's truly amazing. It really is. So what do we got? We're going to talk about trains today. This particular one is kind of taken out of the Agatha Christie novels of Death on the Orient Express, but it's very similar. But I'd like to talk about something new that's coming down. It's called hyperloop. Have you heard of it before?
I haven't, Bill. Explain a bit more about this hyperloop.
Well, hyperloop is a concept developed by Elon Musk, the guy that has SpaceX, and also he originally founded PayPal with his brother. But this guy is quite brilliant. He's decided that we can have trains that travel on the Earth, or not necessarily trains, but some means of transportation. They can go up to 700 miles an hour safely within a tube. Within the tube is air, and you have things called pods, which are either passenger pods or freight pods. The passenger pods would hold 8 to 10 persons strapped in a chair. Within the pod, they'd be probably sitting there with VR headsets on to occupy their time, and the pod would then be slid into a tube. The tube would be depressurized to a certain point to where there was not much slack, and then the front of the pod has a big turbo fan, and it is electric powered, and the pod is just slightly smaller than the diameter of the tube. The tube itself is the air is extracted, the fan starts up and starts to pull the car forward, and as it does, it blows air all the way around the outsides of the pod, and the pod then no longer touches any surface. And as the air is brought in from the front, it is shot out the back, so it gives you forward thrust. And once it takes a few minutes to get up to 600-700 miles an hour, and then it just kind of coasts. And there's air coming through the fan, goes out through these little jets on the side to keep it separated from the tube, and then the excess air goes out the back. And then every few seconds they can throw a new pod in there. They use technology similar to the self-driving cars that Google and Elon Musk has come up with. And if there's a problem, all the cars slow down at the same time, or they just stop. It's quite a concept. It's mainly for long haul personal passenger travel, and I see it better used for hauling freight from like Los Angeles to San Francisco in 30 minutes. They can take a car like I don't want to call it a car. They take a container ship, you know, the containers that come over on container ships, and they put that onto a flatbed pod and then encircle it and then shoot it down this tube and it comes out the other end. That to me is the best use of this, to move freight from over long distances very fast. What do you think of that?
I think it's very clever, Bill. Very clever indeed. Is it not working very similar to how the hovercraft work?
Similar. It's kind of a cross between an air hockey table and a hovercraft. It's very similar. Very similar. It's still experimental. They haven't built an actual full-size working model, but there's several companies working on it. The technology that Musk came up with, he's made open source, so anybody can copy it. They can all work together around the world. There's several companies in Europe that have sprung up and want to develop this technology. There's also companies in the United States. There's a planned route from Los Angeles to San Francisco, and they figure it'll take about 30 minutes and it'll cost you about $40 to take a ride on this thing. To go to lunch in San Francisco and come back, and then come back the other way is another $40. They're building some test tracks in Nevada and in Texas, and they figure to be up and running with a full test by 2018, and possibly be able to haul passengers by 2020. So what do you think of that?
Wow. I think absolutely amazed, Bill. Absolutely amazing. I mean, I thought when they built the Channel Tunnel, that was quite a feat of modern engineering. But this is going way beyond that. I mean, this is something that's going to be literally, well, you're going to be quicker than a plane, basically, at those sort of speeds.
Yeah, most of your planes travel about 500 miles an hour, and they're talking 700 miles an hour on this. The interesting thing is Musk came up with this concept because he has plans to go to Mars. He wants to colonize Mars. And they're trying to figure out Mars is a big place, and how can we get from one area to another fast? Well, on Mars, there's almost zero gravity, and there's no friction in the air like there is on Earth. So they figure they could just build a track with no tube on Mars and use magnetic levitation to hold the car on the track, but without touching it. And they figure they can go 1,800 miles an hour on Mars with this concept.
So we're looking at very similar to the film which was out many years ago with Schwarzenegger. And I can't think of the life of me the name of it now, to be honest with you. It's where he's a special agent.
Yeah. I was thinking more kind of like Tron type concept, where the guy had that super motorcycle, and then there was tubular trains that were in the area and stuff. But yeah, similar to that.
It's quite amazing, Bill. I don't know how they even come up with half these designs. I mean, when you think just over 120 years ago, we were still riding around on a horse and cart. We've gone from that to train, from train to car, from car to aeroplane, from aeroplane to high-speed trains, high-speed travel on Concorde, and that's without the supersonic jets. It's amazing where technology has gone within the last 100 years.
It really is. What amazes me is your undersea tunnel between Britain and Europe. Have you ever gone through that tunnel?
Yes, once, Bill, once.
Were you on a train or in the car?
I was in the car at the time, so I just literally drove the car on and literally just hopped across.
Is that how that works?
Yeah, pretty much. You basically drive your car onto a train, and they park you up, and then obviously the train just carries on, and then literally you just get to the other side. It probably takes about half an hour, I suppose.
Boy, you know, they have concepts of this actually going under channels like that and traveling under the ground also by just making tunnels and putting tubes in the tunnels.
Oh, it's just amazing.
You might someday in your lifetime be able to jump in one of these pods and end up in France or Germany in a matter of minutes.
Oh, quite literally. It's going to be an amazing feat of engineering. It really is. My only worry is that at those sort of speeds, are they going to have problems with it coming off of the track or going through the tube or whatever? But I'm sure they would have worked it out. I presume with the cushioning of air that it's going to soften any sort of knocks and blows.
Well, they claim they can stop it pretty quick. My main concern is in California especially, is these tubes are supposed to be elevated above the ground so they don't have any problems with cross traffic or anything. And that's all well and good, but what happens when we get an earthquake and the whole thing falls down? That's my biggest concern.
Yeah. No, I can understand that. It's but then where are we going to go from here, Bill? I mean, we've got the fast trains, we've got the 360 cameras, we've got the virtual reality. I dread to think what's going to happen in the next 100 years. I mean, literally in terms of engineering and technology, we just seem to be just going leaps and bounds.
We are, yeah. Every week I read about some new technology. It looks like Google's going to jump into the VR portable headsets now. They just came out this week and gave a talk about what they're coming up with. So I'm sure we'll have more in the next couple of weeks. But they plan to produce a headset very similar to the Gear VR. So to work with other than just Samsung phones. Nothing on the Apple side yet. It's all Android. But that's kind of exciting.
It is. I don't really see that Apple will produce a VR headset at the moment. I can't see them doing it. I don't think they're even working.
Did we lose our connection? Yep. We did. Folks, this is one of the problems we run into when we're trying to make this show, is our cameraman fell off the table about 2 minutes ago onto the floor, and so I just ignored that. And Otanka, he just disappeared. It's amazing what technology can do for us. I'm hoping he will return. Sometimes these units overheat and they just shut off, these VR units. And they're not quite where they need to be yet, but we're sure having a lot of fun doing these talk shows in VR. So let me take a break here for about 1 minute and set up the cameraman again, and then I'll be right back. So we'll take a break. Time for commercial. And I'm back. Now all I got to do is figure out where Otanka is. Otanka, are you out there? Here's our cameraman, by the way. He's here. Okay, I think I'm going to have to wrap this show up because I think he overheated. So, that's about all we have for this week, folks. This is Bill and cameraman. Hello, cameraman. And we'll have to wrap it up for this week. But before I go, I have a few words of wisdom for you. Worrying is like sitting in a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it doesn't get you anywhere. With that, we'll say good night.